Irish Fairy Tales. Chapter 15. He was given good training by the women in running and leaping and swimming. One of them would take a thorn switch in her hand, and Finn would take a thorn switch in his hand, and each would try to strike the other running round a tree. You had to go fast to keep away from the switch behind, and a small boy feels a switch. Finn would run his best to get away from that prickly stinger, but how he would run when it was his turn to deal the strokes. With reason too, for his nurses had suddenly grown implacable. They pursued him with a savagery which he could not distinguish from hatred, and they swished him well whenever they got the chance. Finn learned to run. After a while he could buzz around a tree like a maddened fly, and oh, the joy when he felt himself drawing from the switch and gaining from behind on its bearer. How he strained and panted to catch on that pursuing person and pursue her and get his own switch into action. He learned to jump by chasing hares in a bumpy field. Up went the hare and up went Finn, and away with the two of them hopping and popping across the field. If the hare turned while Finn was after her, it was switch for Finn, so that in a while it did not matter to Finn which way the hare jumped, for he could jump that way too. Long ways, sideways, or ballways, Finn hopped where the hare hopped, and at last he was the owner of a hop that any hare would give an ear for. He was taught to swim, and it may be that his heart sank when he fronted the lesson. The water was cold. It was deep. One could see the bottom, leagues below, millions of miles below. A small boy might shiver as he stared into that wink and blink and twink of brown pebbles and murder. And these implacable women threw him in. Perhaps he would not go in at first. He may have smiled at them and coaxed and hung back. It was a leg and an arm grip, then a swing for Finn, and out and away with him, plop and flop for him, down into chill deep death for him, and up with a splutter, with a sob, with a grasp at everything that caught nothing, with a wild flurry, with a raging despair, with a bubble and snort as he was hauled again down and down and down, and found as suddenly that he had been hauled out. Finn learned to swim until he could pop into the water like an otter and slide through it like an eel. He used to try to chase a fish the way he chased hares in the bumpy field, but there are terrible spurts in a fish. It may be that a fish cannot hop, but he gets there in a flash, and he isn't there in another. Up or down, sideways or endways, it is all one to a fish. He goes and is gone. He twists this way and disappears the other way. He is over you when he ought to be under you, and he is biting your toe when you thought you were biting his tail. You cannot catch a fish by swimming, but you can try, and Finn tried. He got a grudging commendation from the terrible women when he was able to slip noiselessly in the tide, swim under water to where a wild duck was floating, and grip it by the leg. "Shoo," said the duck, and he disappeared before he had time to get the ack out of him. So the time went, and Finn grew long and straight and tough like a sapling, limber as a willow, and with the flirt and spring of a young bird. One of the ladies may have said, "He is shaping very well, my dear," and the other replied, "As is the morose privilege of an ant, he will never be as good as his father," but their hearts must have overflowed in the night, in the silence, in the darkness, when they thought of the living swiftness they had fashioned and that dear fair head.